Let's speak to Ian Lesser, Distinguished Fellow and Advisor to the President at the German Marshall Fund think tank. Welcome to you. Thanks very much for being with us. Well, from where you're sitting, what is going to be top of the agenda for the next Prime Minister of Britain?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that Britain's partners have a real stake in the outcome of this election. Whoever wins, they're going to be looking to the UK to be more energetic, more stable in terms of its politics. And of course, this is at a time when there are a lot of elections and a lot of political uncertainty going on both sides of the Atlantic. So the stakes are really quite high because there's a war in Europe. There are burden-sharing debates between the United States and Europe about defense spending and activism in the world. And the UK can be an extraordinarily important part of that, but partners are looking to see what happens.
If Keir Starmer wins, he said he wants a better EU deal. What do you think that could look like? And what do Europe want from the UK?
Well, I think these are really, there are different things going on here. There's the trade and finance piece of this where I think many people would agree that the arrangements since Brexit have really not been what anyone would like. It's somewhat gone off the Brussels agenda, frankly, in recent years because people have gotten bored with it here. But it's hugely meaningful. It's hugely meaningful to the UK, obviously, but also to a Europe that wants to do more in the world. And there's a foreign policy and defense piece where the UK is a big actor in broader European terms. And as Europe looks to do more, the UK can be an extremely important actor in that too. But all of this is to be seen. There's going to be an important summit, a NATO summit next week in Washington, and that will be an important test as well. Yeah,
the UK over the Russia-Ukraine war has played a really leading role, hasn't it? Been really forward-thinking and forward-acting in terms of its arms, in terms of its visits to Ukraine. Do you see that continuing, whoever becomes Prime Minister tomorrow?
I do, and I would completely agree that the UK has been very forward-leaning over this and is really in the mainstream in that regard now. It wasn't necessarily at the beginning, but is now. And I think whoever wins, I think the UK's partners will look for continuity, and I think they're probably likely to get that.
What about the UK's relationship with the US? We may see a different president come November. Do you think that's going to be potentially difficult for whoever is Prime Minister?
Well, I think it's going to be a big challenge for everyone to see what happens and how one adjusts to it. I mean, it's certainly a big issue in Brussels and all over Europe. I think the special relationship is there. It's pretty solid. Has it ever been quite what it's thought to be sometimes, especially in London? Perhaps not in recent years. Perhaps not. Europe as a whole has loomed large in Washington's calculus. I think, though, as NATO becomes an extremely, even more important part of the transatlantic relationship at the time of war, the UK and its role in NATO as a possible engine of greater European contributions in NATO is going to be even more important. But I do think Washington, whoever wins in Washington, is going to be looking to the UK to do more in the world and to spend more on defence.
We've also heard Keir Starmer say today that he doesn't think that in his lifetime the UK will rejoin the EU. What's the view from Europe? Do they think that as well?
I think that's probably the consensus view here, too. I think many people would like to see the UK come back into the EU. And there may be many in the UK as well who have that view. But it's extraordinarily difficult to do. And of course, what sort of EU? It may look very different in 10 years' time. British feelings about it may be very different in 10 years' time. But in any case, whatever happens on that front, there needs to be some sort of a better, more functional deal between London and Brussels. And I think that's going to be one of the key tasks for any new government in London.
Well, we will find out tomorrow, 10 o'clock UK time, roughly there or thereabouts when the results start coming in. Thank you very much, Ian Lesser, for joining us from Brussels.